Eric, we're now going to move into what I had been calling for a long time my rapid fire questions. It turns out I don't really get rapid fire answers for most of our guests, so maybe I need to.
Maybe I'll change that.
All right.
Sorry.
No, please. So the first question I normally ask is, when did you know you wanted to be a lawyer? But you addressed that in sort of the main portion of this video, so we're going to skip that one.
Okay.
And we're going to move right into, do you have a favorite attorney or a group of attorneys to litigate against?
There's been many over the years. I mean, as a general matter, it's probably what everyone says. High quality lawyers that kind of play it straight are who we prefer. Well, I mean, I can give names over the years of people that I've grown to enjoy litigating against. Roy Brisbois, Penny Perovolos, Sean Morgan, Mike Mallow, Rob Ellis. And there's a fairly good list.
A couple of former guests, I might add, of
yeah?
our show. Indeed, indeed. Eric, what do you think the biggest change to the class action landscape over, say, the previous 5 years has been?
5 years.
Yeah, you can answer. You want to put a different time period on it? Go right
there's
ahead.
a number of these. This is actually something I think about fairly often for odd reasons. I'd say one thing, it's technological. I mean, I remember back in the day when someone would bring a case to us, and typically a consumer case, and you would try to figure out, is it a real case? Is it a real problem? Is it systemic? Do people care about this? And that was a difficult thing to do. And it was hard to find people who were complaining about things. Nowadays, with all the technological and social media improvements and whatnot, you can evaluate these problems at a much more in-depth level. You can communicate with people that feel like they've been taken advantage of, or upset, or believe they have legal claims, and you can figure out like what are their expectations. Right. If you bring this case, what is it that you would like to see happen?
Eric, what's your favorite legal movie?
I'd say The Rainmaker.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good, cheesy lawyer movie, and it's a good movie to watch, to sort of de-stress, and just, you have to love the one-liners in there and the stereotypical characters and all of that.
What's your favorite non-legal movie?
I'd say True Romance. True Romance.
One of my absolute favorites. Absolutely.
When you create characters like Alabama Worley and Clarence. And the rest of them.
So quick follow-up. Why did Quentin Tarantino write but not direct that movie?
I have no idea.
He sold it to have enough money to do Reservoir Dogs.
Well, actually, I think I had read that somewhere.
It's on IMDb. I'm not a special scholar of Quentin Tarantino.
It's a great movie.
Is there a particular book that you've given as a gift fairly often in your life or your career?
That's probably too insightful into my personality. Confederacy of Dunces.
Yeah.
Do you know that one?
So I've owned that book. I bought it at a garage sale in college, and it has sat on my huge bookshelf forever, and I've never read it. Should I read it?
I think you should read it.
Okay.
I'll give credit where credit's due. Dan Gerard gave me that book probably in 1990.
Wow.
And I've read it a couple times since. My daughter's read it. I've given it probably to 6 or 7 people.
Okay. Well, I have it. I
love character development, so you probably figure that out from the movie Answers.
Right.
And that book is right in the wheelhouse in that regard.
What was your least favorite law school class and why?
Property. And I never understood it, and I don't think I understand it today.
So my next question is actually about the rule against perpetuities. What do you think the biggest growth area of class action law is?
I'll give you 2 answers to this. I mean, one is probably not so surprising, but and it's happening now, is the data breach and privacy areas. It's just because of the impact that technology, I think, is having on people's everyday lives, and the importance that it's now, it's reached, has worked its way into the law, and as it should. I think another area of growth, and I think this is connected to class action law, but as Rule 23 becomes more cumbersome and more reformed, and the process to get a settlement done in a bread and butter case takes 9 months or a year and a half or something like that, and the costs are associated with that. I think lawyers, and I think this is starting to happen, but I think lawyers are going to start figuring out how to aggregate people's claims and do them more in a mass sense.
Sure.
On an individual basis, and people will have better control of their own cases and likely at least more expedient resolutions.
Yeah, but I don't know if they'll actually create more efficiencies that way. I mean, in reality, that's where Rule 23 came from, right? I mean, let's create efficiencies and not have a million individual mass cases.
There's certainly efficiencies in Rule 23. I can't complain about that, but the process is fairly cumbersome at this point. I don't think anyone would dispute that.
Sure.
And so you have people like me are trying to figure out how do you solve that problem in a real practical way, because negotiating a real good settlement for someone that you're hoping to deliver 4 months later, that gets caught up in the courts because a class member who had an opportunity to opt out isn't happy with the way the release is written and holds it up for 2.5 years. That's not efficient, and it's not in the interest of the people we serve.
Right.
So that problem has to be solved. And I think one of the changes we'll start seeing over the next few years in the class action practice is solutions to that problem.
It's interesting. So let me ask you this. Which case do you think is the worst case for the plaintiff's bar? Carrera, Concepcion, Dukes, or Spokio?
Concepcion. I mean, Concepcion has eliminated entire areas of practice that aren't warranted, and it's immunized entire industries.
Yeah.
So if you're a person who uses a bank
Right.
or a cell phone or a checking account or any credit card or anything like that, you effectively have contracted away your legal rights unknowingly. And it's the oddest thing, because whenever we get inquiries every day about people that have righteous disputes, there's just no question about it, and you have to explain to them there's not a practical way for you to do that.
Right.
I mean, you can go try to do it yourself through this supposedly streamlined process, but people aren't going to do that. It's intimidating, and it just doesn't make sense. And most of them, what people say, it's just un-American.
Right.
And it is. And I think, over time, this will change, this will go away, and history will look back and say, what sense did that make?
Right. Is there a particular nonprofit that's near and dear to your heart?
There's a number of them. I would say public justice is pretty important in terms of what we do, and they strike a nice balance between actually prosecuting cases and being involved in different levels on a political and policy side. But there's dozens and dozens of nonprofit organizations that are of the utmost importance, to society in general.
Sure. Eric, what, in your opinion, is the most beautiful courthouse in the United States of America?
So here's a random one for you. Pre-Concepcion, I had a case against a bank in Rhode Island, and I appeared a number of times in a court in Providence, Rhode Island, that was just magnificent. Just a magnificent courthouse. The courtroom itself was magnificent. I don't know if that's the most beautiful court I've ever seen, but 17 years later, I remember that courthouse.
Right. Well, that's telling. Eric, would you advise the next generation to go to law school?
I would. I would advise the next generation to go to law school. I think people that are interested in challenging work, who are interested in rolling up their sleeves and taking on, the problems of the day, Law school provides an excellent opportunity for people to do that type of thing. And, if you just take a look at what's happening in our country right now,
Sure.
in terms of immigration and all the types of policies that are being implemented, it's lawyers. And oftentimes I think it's going to be the younger lawyers who are going to take on those challenges and who are either going to stop those types of things from happening, or they're going to have such an impact on policy that will get our policy and will get our politics back on the right track. And it's lawyers that are ultimately going to be responsible for that, who are empowered to do it and have always done that.
Right. So that dovetails into my last and final question. To these kids who did just go to law school or just got out of law school, if you had one piece of sort of poignant advice to impart upon them, what would you tell them?
To those who just got out or who are thinking about going?
No, just got out. They're young lawyers. What are you going to tell them?
What I would tell young lawyers is hold on. I mean, don't immediately trade away your kind of hopes and what your, the reasons that you went to law school in the first place in order to get a quick job. I mean, try to hang on, because time is your friend.
Right.
And you'll find a good landing place. You'll find a location, someplace where you have a good mentorship, and you can advance your career without heading down a path that, 5 or 10 years later, you may really dislike and find yourself thinking, I didn't go to law school for this.
Right. Thank you again, Eric. This has been great.
Thank you, Steve.